and welcome to a brand new episode of the Five Heart Podcast. Not only is it brand new, this is our 250th episode. So this is going to be a celebration of all things Coronation, the Five Heart Podcast over the past 5-6 years. I don't know. We'll talk about it as we go. I'm your host. My name is Greg Mahochko. If you're looking at the same screen I'm looking at, down here is Todd Wolverton. And this dashing young man over here, by golly, with Ma on her kerchief and he in his cap, looks like he's ready to settle down for that long winter's nap. That's John Dam Johnston, our founder and fearless leader of Coronation. John?
Yes, Greg.
You look like you're straight out of Victorian England. What's going on? Like you look
I don't
like
know what I'm
Ebenezer
doing with
Scrooge.
these things. I just got to keep the hair out of my eyes. So I'm trying different things until it gets long enough so I could pull it back into a man bun so I could be Aaron Rodgers' apprentice.
You look like you'd be Aaron Rodgers' grandfather.
Okay, that'll work.
Todd, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Long couple days. I'm tired. I'm old. I'm grouchy. But I'm here to celebrate the 250th episode.
Rock on. And welcome in his Five Heart Podcast debut, one of the many fine folks we have at coronation.com. Tyler. What's going on, Tyler?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Tyler, we have to ask, are you being held in a dark cellar against your will?
If marriage is a dark cellar, I would say yes.
And that was the last time Tyler was ever on the Five Heart Podcast.
That's why I'm downstairs and not upstairs.
Well, let's go. There was a audio hiccup at the beginning, but it seems to have ironed itself out now. So welcome aboard, man. How are you doing tonight?
Good. What have I missed so far?
We just
started.
I
just started. All right, perfect.
We're just moving through the intro.
Yeah, you showed up at the right time. We just got done introducing Todd and saying how old John looks. And then it was like, oh, Tyler's here. So perfect timing. You couldn't have planned it any better unless you were here on time.
Works for me.
Tyler,
okay.
So as one of the hold on, John. Hold on.
Oh,
pump the brakes there, old timer.
right.
Tyler's one of our newer Coronation acquisitions, dare I say. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know this is the first time you've been on the podcast. So what's your area of expertise as far as what you do here at Coronation?
John initially hired me to do recruiting, and I still do a little bit of that. I think good word from a friend, Pat Jansen, who used to be affiliated with Coronation. The guys who did the Big Red Cast, Ryan Tweedy and stuff like that. So I think he got good word about me from Pat. And so I came on board as a recruiting writer and have, for the past several home games, been covering the team from the press box, which has been a really fun experience and really enjoy that. So I've been a Nebraska fan pretty much from the moment I could start walking, watched all the glory years, remember more 97 than 94, 95. That's when I really started paying attention to football. So, but I love it. I love Coronation so far. I love being a part of it. And I just love that with hearing from, everybody who has a say in the Cornhusker community. So it's nice.
So I have to ask, and it's important that I get your take on this because, as we all know, Todd is a little bit older, and then John's certainly exponentially older than that. So these guys, they have dwindling memories, and then John had the heart attack, and we made fun of his age and and memory before that. So I almost feel mean making fun of it now. But
so you don't, you lying sack of shit.
That's true. But as someone who, a little bit younger, remembers the 90s pretty well, and then the slow slide into mediocrity, how do you handle it being, a little bit younger than these guys who, John's liver's toast, he's trying to regenerate it by giving up alcohol. It's not working. And then Todd's Todd, and we say that.
Well, it's interesting because like I said, I do remember the 90s, as shocking as that may seem for some people that, a 5-year-old remembers, Husker football at that point. And like I said, 97, I remember more crystal clear than the two earlier championships in the 90s. But and then, of course, the run we had in 2001, losing to that unbelievable Miami team. I for sure thought we weren't even going to be in the conversation for the national championship after what happened in the Colorado game. But it's been weird. Like it's hard to explain because it's hard to explain to like my younger siblings because I have a lot of younger half siblings. My youngest half sibling is like 4 or 5 years old and he's just now starting to like football. And it's hard to explain to him that Nebraska football used to be relevant, used to be good.
Used to be
he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that.
God, I'm gonna weep.
It's sad. It really is. And seeing, the the firing of Frank Solich and bringing in of Bill Callahan and going through that to Pelini, to Riley, now to Frost. It just light at the end of the tunnel, like most of us are to it, but it just feels like every time we take a step closer to it, we take like 5 more steps back. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to keep the optimism in my heart when it seems like the same things are happening over and over and over again, and there just doesn't seem to be an end in sight anywhere.
Time out. Why didn't Tyler record the post-Minnesota game rant instead of John? Because the way he handled it and the way he articulated it is the same as John, except Tyler will get credentialed going forward. He has not alienated the rest of the Big Ten like viral sensation John Dam Johnston. Tyler, thank you very much. That was a wonderful capsule of life as a Big Red fan from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the swamp. Perfect.
I thought you were going to call timeout so you could explain to him what happens when you get old and bitter like you and how hard it is to hold on to happiness then.
I have to spend more time with Tyler. I have decided that right now because
Tyler, we're sorry.
I feel like I'm dividing the podcast room here a little bit. So
no more than usual.
Well, my mom said I had to stop hanging out with John. She said, you have to start choosing your friends more wisely.
Probably did. I can believe that.
In John's defense, though, he voiced his frustration in the way that I normally would voice my especially with what's happening this season, which is so baffling. The 1-score losses. It's good to know that we are this close, but it's like eventually, when is that gap going to be closed? Like the 1-score losses, when do they become 1-score wins? Or or become victories like the Northwestern victory, because Northwestern is a poor team in the Big 12 or in the Big 10 right now. They are. But to the extent of the rest of the Big 10, I don't know. I mean, put Northwestern and Indiana, there might be some points there. Who knows? There may be none. But it just doesn't make sense to me that we keep finding ways to lose these close games. But for the past 7 years before that, we would get in big-time games and we would shit the bed and not be relevant and not be even in, considered for being a team on the rise at all. Because it seems like a lot of the media pundits out there say we are a team on the rise, that Scott has figured out something with this team. But, we just keep finding ways to shoot ourselves in the foot because this team has suffered year after year after year with losing and knowing what a loss feels like and not knowing what an actual genuine victory from start to finish feels like. And anytime they do, it goes back to the same old thing. The minute they start feeling good, it just bad stuff starts happening again.
Tyler, I want to. This is the second time you kind of said the 1 step forward, 5 steps back type of thing, and I completely agree. I think what we see in game is the microscope zoomed in, but it's a program thing. The program will take a step forward and then have to get pushed back, just like we see on the field on Saturdays. Obviously, I don't have the answers. Otherwise, I'd be making $7 million a year, and But I want to go back. Something you talked on, or I guess Todd mentioned it. John's post game on the field video at Minnesota, and this is why I think not only will he get more credentials, I think he will be welcomed by road universities, opponent universities with open arms, because John is a media sensation now. 1 and 2, he did such a good job of selling that Minnesota game day experience that it was a little free commercial for watching a game there on Minnesota's home turf. So why wouldn't another university say, "By God, he's right. Let's And John, I know I don't know if bucket list is the right word, but you said you love to go and shoot the game at Madison, in a few weeks and be a part of that. I don't see why you won't be.
Well, is it possible that anybody has reached out to John, or John's reached out to anyone for credential? I mean, shoot, I think Nebraska goes up to play volleyball up in.
Oh my God! Nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. You sons of bitches. God,
a little aggressive.
I got one thing. I've got to say this. I did a training today with one of my colleagues up in Neely, Nebraska, and there were teachers, administrators there from 8 different schools in north central Nebraska. There were about 30 people in the room. And of course, my colleague, she was the one that was kind of spearheading the presentation, and I was kind of, the sidekick, so to speak. And she introduced herself, and then she wanted me to introduce myself. And so I gave my usual stick that I've been given for the last year and a half. And I said, "Oh, and by the way, show of hands, how many of you have seen the short little video that has gone viral from that Nebraska fan with the old guy with the long hair that went on the rant after the Minnesota game?" Well over 3/4 of the people raised their hand. And I said, "That was really something, wasn't it?" And they all kind of chuckled and laughed and stuff. And I said, "That's one of my very best friends from college." And I said, "So if you're going to develop an opinion of me before I start presenting, let me tell you, I am the stabilizing force in his life."
Oh my God. I can believe this. Oh, good God.
That might be laying it on a little thick, though, honestly.
He would do
stabilizing
that.
force.
I did it. That's true.
That video, by the way, over 23,000 views now on YouTube.
It still didn't get as many as Illinois.
It's true. And Illinois was also where you first coined the phrase.
It is.
You know, so real recognize real. But I said at the time, I said, John is the angry voice / face of Husker fans. You know, either with the internet being what it is, everybody could have the platform if they chose. But you go into most of the message boards, they're saying the same things. You go to most of the comment sections, they're saying the same things. It's just John is like, I kind of want to do this from the field after the loss. And sure, it would have been nice if, you know, it was a post-game celebration video. But the reaction video that you gave was pure emotion, some irrational thought, and a phrase that I've seen people trying to turn into T-shirts online. I haven't seen the shirts in person, but and also it's important to say almost 2 weeks later, thanks for not stepping in front of a bus.
I can show you with the pre-rehearsed video I was going to do if we won.
Okay.
It would have gone something like this. And it probably would have had some F words in it. And I can guarantee you Minnesota probably would have drugged me off the field and said, don't come fucking back.
And that might have actually cost you credentials both there and anywhere else in the future. If you're
I think I injured
pelvic
myself.
thrusts on the 50-yard line.
Let's do the time warp again. That's all it is.
What's the time warp?
You've never seen Rocky Horror Picture Show?
It's not really on my to watch list.
It, especially during Halloween season. Yeah, it's find it, sit down and watch it. I think it's on Amazon Prime right now. Just watch it. Tim Curry at his finest, Susan Sarandon looking amazingly hot.
What's it about?
It's about.
Oh my God.
Let's do the time warp again.
The best way I could describe it is a rock opera.
Oh, rock. Okay.
It's a rock opera that is focuses on gothic sci-fi type themes. Like aliens from another planet. Meatloaf's in it. It's great. You know, he's
2 out of 3.
Do they still show that Lincoln as a midnight movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I saw it advertised.
Do people dress up?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
so they're still doing that stuff.
All right, so I'm definitely in the minority here of the four of us. This is for all of you watching on YouTube. If you feel that Rocky Horror Picture Show is worth my time, let me know in the comments, and I might watch it after the football game, depending on how that goes. We got trick-or-treating this weekend.
The children are in bed. After the children are in bed.
after the children are in bed.
After the children are in bed.
Is it an R-rated rock opera?
Not really.
It's back when the rating system was skewed. It's like in the 70s, 80s, right? So like, you know, Jaws is an R-rated movie, PG-13, and that one I would probably bump up to like PG-13R, and so like Breakfast Club is an R-rated
Back
movie.
when America had morals and they weren't like run over by Todd and his.
I wouldn't consider Breakfast Club an R-rated movie. So it's
Bruce fall out all the time. The world's in a perfect place. Okay, so there you go. Again, for you, the viewers, if you've made it this far, God bless you. And tell me, Rocky Horror Picture Show, is it worth my time? I'm curious to know the viewers' reactions. So,
Everybody should see it.
Oh
once.
my!
Everybody should see it once.
Okay.
They should see it at a theater in its intended environment.
I feel like
with the people in the costumes and the audience participation, it's quite a spectacle. It's amazing to watch. It really is. And they've been doing it since basically, it became a cult following type of thing, and people will do it throughout the year, like once a month or twice a month or whatever. But the big time it happens is around Halloween, because it's considered a Halloween type movie just because of the themes, I guess. But I feel like we're getting away from Nebraska football and we're talking more about Rocky Horror Picture Show, which goes to show you how we feel about Nebraska football maybe at the moment.
I think we're 3-5.
Get our minds on something a little differently.
What do you extend your entertainment dollars on?
Speaking of horror movies, with this weekend being Halloween, No, I feel like sometimes the scariest 3 hours that I can spend is watching a Husker football game on a Saturday. I go into it. We had this hierarchy of the conversation because I'm a Husker fan. Obviously, I'm a Steelers fan at the NFL level. I love the St. Louis Cardinals. I love the St. Louis Blues. So we had the hierarchy as like, what do you love more, the Huskers or the Steelers? I was like, well, is it Sunday? No, then it's the Huskers, or is it December? Then it's the Steelers because the Huskers aren't playing in December. We know that. And I'm like, okay, what about
not for a while?
Sorry, John, the truth hurts. Get over it. But it's like pretty much the Huskers being, my priority, viewing it. And God bless my wife, because she puts up with it. She doesn't mind usually sitting there and watching the game or, doing other things, but she lets me watch the game. So I, that chunk of time is, I don't want to say sacred. I don't want to sound, blasphemous or anything like that, but that's, I'm getting my oldest into watching the games. He'll sit there, I'll sit on one couch, he'll sit on the other. Sometimes he'll sit up next to me, and he can feel, I think, the excitement and the energy that I have, which gets me excited to someday take him to Memorial Stadium. And especially if it's a primetime game, because we've seen what the program and the university have put together this year, and share that energy with him. But he'll be like, go Big Red. And then he doesn't know the tempo, the way it's said in the state among other fans. So he'll just rattle off 20 go Big Reds, go Big Red, go Big Red, go Red. He's like running around like you gave, a 5-year-old coffee or something like that. And that's fine. I wish I could bottle that energy and put it to work for myself. But win or lose, and like, look, this 5 Heart podcast, we're in the 250th episode. I think a lot of people forget because it's been over 4 years now, but this was started as a me and Brian show, and then when he passed so suddenly, I realized that, there is more to life than football, sorry, John, I didn't feel that as much with you. No, I'm kidding. But, he and I started this. This is actually our second podcast for Coronation. We had like a mailbag show years before that called Detasseling the Huskers. I don't know why we called it that, but people sent in, emailed or whatever questions to us, and we, recorded midweek or whatever and answered their questions. And Brian was great at that. He did the recruiting. He coordinated. I've talked about this with various Coronation people since, but the general consensus is, while John is the face of Coronation, certainly we wouldn't be nearly as organized as we are without Jill. Jill stepped up in a big way. And I don't know if people know that, outside of our group, but, she kind of makes sure that, posts aren't overlapping or running into each other. She does, handles a lot of the logistics, and I don't know if she gets enough credit for that. But that was all, that was something that Brian handled also. No, so he recorded a podcast with me, did the recruiting, cranked out, maybe sometimes 4 or 5 articles a day, as well as all the scheduling. And so there was when one person passed away, but there were a lot of jobs left, to a lot of roles to be filled. So, Haas stepped in right away, on co-hosting the show here. And then eventually, John, you were doing guest spots, and then you never went away. And so here
I can attend to do that.
Is that what you told your wife?
Well, you can ask Todd's dad. I still remember Todd's dad one weekend. Later, he bitched at me. He said, I asked him something about buying more beer, and he said, you drank my entire budget for this month. We're out there. I was out there on a Saturday or something. I still remember that bit from your dad. And I thought, you knew I was coming. Why the fuck didn't you hide it, you dumbass? What the hell are you? Come on. It's not, this is no secret. Jesus.
I don't want to diminish anybody's efforts, but what Brian did in recruiting, we've got guys like Tyler, Aquilo, Rick, when he's available. Multiple guys are doing what one guy used to do. And every situation is different. Some guys have more and or less time to be able to devote to it. Brian was kind of in that sweet spot because he had the flexibility with his work and things like that. But the way this show started, and people don't realize that we should be almost to 275 or 285 episodes, but we took off an off season after spring football and didn't start up again until like August one year. Cause we're like both tired. We're just, trying to work the schedule, just don't have it in us. So, and actually now that I look back, I think that might've been the off season of 2017, so coming back, we didn't have too many recordings, again, before Brian passed. But the way that this show has evolved, and, certainly earlier this year when, my twins were born, I had to scale back my involvement. And Todd, God bless you, man. John, held you down to the pavement and threatened made you the kind of the honorary host, and you're way too kind to me because you said, yeah, I know it's me, Todd. I sure wish Greg was here too. No, you guys rocked it. All those episodes that I was away. I appreciate you, Todd, for holding down the fort. Because as you know, more than anybody at Coronation outside of Mrs. Coronation is John's not an easy person to put up with day in and day out.
Come on.
I'm just kidding, John. We love you.
Greg,
well, that's probably true, actually.
I just want to say a couple things here. I never met Brian. I never communicated with Brian. I knew Brian through John. I knew Brian through, Coronation, and I listened, to the podcast a few times. And, you got to echo and what Greg's saying about the role that he filled. And, me kind of coming on the scene well after Brian passed, you still appreciate, the impact that he had, because you hear it in the story that Greg tells, references that Jill makes, references that John makes. And, Greg, I'm glad you shared that story, because it really does put some perspective on not only where this podcast has come from, but in reality, where Coronation has come from.
And I got to say, because we're talking about Brian, today, as we're recording this, and this episode, the 250th episode, will actually drop a day early. So, everybody usually expects the 5 Heart podcast on Fridays. This will drop Thursday. And then we have a special edition of the 5 Heart podcast for Friday as well, with Travis Miller from Hammer and Rails. So you get 2 5 Heart podcasts this week, and I apologize in advance, but that's okay. But we record this on October 27th, 2021. And quite possibly 10 years to the day from one of the worst sports days in Brian's life, because it was on October 27th, 2011, where my St. Louis Cardinals and David Freese came back to win it in the 11th inning over his beloved Texas Rangers. And I remember I shared that video on Facebook almost every year, and I tag him in it, even because I know he swears at me, and he's probably doing it right now. But I would bring that up every year, up until his passing, and he got to the point where you're like, just don't even say it. I know what today is. Don't say it. But
that is, what sport is that?
Baseball.
No, it's Major League Baseball.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right, John.
I feel like I missed out on something.
Do you think there is more of a following in college baseball now than Major League Baseball, John? You think more people follow the Collegiate World Series and things like that more than they would follow like the World Series and postseason now?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yes.
I don't.
I just look at this. Look, I know most college baseball teams are tied to, like the state, right? Be it Texas or Georgia. I mean, Nebraska, certainly.
LSU, Arkansas.
Okay,
the
thank
entire
you.
SEC. The
Cal
Stetson
State
Mad
Fullerton.
Hatters.
Okay,
UFC Davis, the Long Beach State Dirt Bags.
Are you done?
Yeah.
But you look at a metropolitan area like Atlanta, and it's
huge.
The Major League Baseball impact of it's the entire state of Georgia, right? So, but it's also the fans who are have moved out of that area. So I love the College World Series. I don't ever have the time to watch it. I don't have time to watch the World Series unless the Cardinals are playing in it, right? That's sort of my MO. If my team's not playing, I don't care. I've got X amount of hours to watch sports every week, and usually it's tied up by the Huskers. But no, Tyler, to answer your question, no way is the College World Series bigger than the Major League Baseball World Series. And I apologize to you, John, because I know that's a slap in the face and a dagger in the back. That's the reality. Because you're never going to have if it's the Dodgers and the Yankees, there's nothing that college baseball can do to compete with that as far as a draw, as far as numbers. Two of the most storied franchises in all of sports.
Mm-hmm.
You just have this year where it's Atlanta and Houston, and nobody likes Houston because Houston's a bunch of cheating bastards. So everybody's pulling for Atlanta.
I am pulling for Atlanta for that very same reason. And the fact that Jake Myers wasn't on the roster because of his shoulder injury, it gave me less of a reason to like Houston. So, but no, I mean, and kind of like you were saying, Greg, the Dodgers winning it, the Cubs winning it in 2016, which got that, huge, burden off their back. Kansas City Royals winning it. I mean, I think people get more invested in the city, and then people, obviously Yankee fans are everywhere, Red Sox fans, Dodger fans. One of my best friends is in hog heaven right now because the Braves are in the World Series, and he's been an Atlanta Braves fan since, the early 90s. So it's great. It's amazing. I think that Major League Baseball will always be more watched over the College World Series. It's great to hear the Cinderella stories and the teams that, get out of the regional and super regionals and make it down to Omaha and things like that. And I took my son for the first time to the College World Series this year, and he fell in love with Virginia. the Virginia baseball team, and actually took him for his birthday, and he got his baseball signed by Virginia's closer, Stephen Schock. I probably won't be listening to the podcast, but shout out to Stephen for taking the time to do that for Cooper.
You tag him in this link on Twitter, and he'll find it.
Okay, and actually he was really awesome about it, because I put something on Twitter saying he took his time out to stop with him, and he direct messaged me, and he just kind of change a few words. That was the thing. They play, he's like, I want to go close, but he's not really involved in another like major league team right now. So the fact that he just loves baseball in general, I feel like taking him to the College World Series is the best thing. But
and also I think
anyway,
I agree. I think there are some really fun stories that can be told in Omaha, and maybe that's the advantage that they have. They don't have the big brands, the big four. But after the Red Sox, World Series drought ended in 2004, also Boston, and the Cubs streak ended in 2016, also for the Cubs. There aren't as many, and then the Royals, they had a much shorter drought, but there just aren't that many fun stories in baseball anymore. And baseball, to their credit, is doing everything possible. Like Major League Baseball, let me clarify, is doing everything possible.
You know what the difference between you guys is and me?
I don't interrupt people.
Well, that could be one of them. I'm pretty good at that. I hear it from my family all the time. The honest to God truth is I am not a sports fan, and you guys are sports fans. I'm not. I am not a sports fan at all. I am a Nebraska fan. And when Nebraska touches other things, then I'm a fan of those things. But I'm not actually a sports fan. I have watched since the pandemic started. I've watched more NFL football than I've really honestly cared to watch, because my family keeps pulling me into these fantasy league things that I get destroyed in. I'm at the bottom of our family league this year, and I think that's where you're supposed to be if you're dad, I guess. I don't know what the hell the deal is. But that's the reason why I like college. In fact, Todd's dad was the reason that I got to like Husker baseball. Otherwise, I probably would never paid attention to Husker baseball until Dave Van Horn came along. But back to one thing about Brian being gone, we don't make any jokes anymore about polishing our balls. And, there's no, he would be so serious about bowling balls and whatever the hell people were doing when they came into his shop about balls. My God.
Yeah. He'd be like, I got to go in and drill balls. So, for those who don't know, Brian was a big bowler as well. Did leagues, worked the bowling alley in like the pro shop, and actually helped cover bowling. Husker women's bowling and things like that, which we tried to carry on here and there, and they have more championships this millennium than the Husker football team. But yeah, so all the bowling references they've decreased, diminished exponentially.
So where are we going to go from here, Greg?
I don't know how far we are into this.
No, I mean by the 300th episode. Where are we going?
Surrender Cobra.
What do you see in the future of the Five Heart Podcast? What's your business plan for growth and fame?
More John Johnston, less of everybody else.
Oh my God! No.
So we do these. We put these videos up on YouTube, right? And I know you were giving me hell because I didn't do last week's because I didn't have the energy. I
didn't. Somebody on YouTube actually said asked where it was. So See, they pay attention.
They do, but also the views on that versus like a halftime or post game or one of your prediction videos, it's a couple hundred views. So I don't know how we sustain putting the entire episode up on YouTube. This is, by the way, production meeting shit that we should not be sharing with the general public, but here I am. It's also easier if I'm going to put any of the 5 Heart podcast up on YouTube, it's easier just to take the entire thing rather than chop it up because that's more work for me. So where are we at in 500 or 550 episodes? Well, let's see. Doing the math, we will be out of September next year into the first week or two of October. So the Husker football team will be 4-1
with the new coach.
No. I thought about that when I wonder how many. Look, we talked
with new position coaches. Question mark.
I would hope so. Janander can stay because we've seen the most improvement on the defensive side of the ball, right? So I feel like that side is safe. But whoever our special teams analyst / coordinator / volunteer off the street is, needs to go. There needs to be. Here's the thing: early in the season, and John and Todd, we're very critical of Verduzco, very critical. However, the last few games, when we had that tough stretch, when it was Oklahoma, Michigan State, Northwestern, not tough, but they were in there in that chunk of with Michigan at the tail end. I thought that Adrian Martinez played his best month of football since he's been here, honestly, and that's with 3 losses. But he looked as good. And then I don't know, he was injured against Minnesota. They're depending on what campus you hear. This time next year, we should have changes on the coaching staff. It won't be the head coach. There's too much money at stake. But I hope that we're happier as a fan base. Scott Frost was supposed to be the great unifier. He was supposed to be the Abraham Lincoln of our day. Might be asking for an awful lot there. But he was supposed to be the hometown, the favorite son, national champion coming home, and that worked until the first game. And not the Akron game that got rained out, but that game against Colorado was like, maybe he's not the guy, So I'm hoping that as a fan base, by this time next year, we're just not ripping each other, apart. That'd be great. Either we all love Scott Frost or we all hate Scott Frost, but let's just all be on the same page.
What do you think, Todd?
Todd, you might want to unmute your microphone.
Yeah, I think the volleyball team just lost the 3rd set, which is unfortunate. But
thanks for paying attention to this show, Todd.
No, I listened really close to what you were saying. I guess my gut tells me that unless the next 4 games are horrible performances by the Nebraska football team, horrible losses, my guess is that Scott Frost will be back. My personal opinion is I don't think he's a quality head coach. I think of the 14 head coaches in the Big Ten Conference, he's at best number 13. I don't believe that he is going to develop into a high quality head coach. I am off the Scott Frost bandwagon.
Wow.
And I do believe that if he does stick around next year, if he is in fact the head coach next year, there will have to be some kind of changes made on his coaching staff. I think that there will be far too much pressure from the fan base. I don't think Trev Alberts is going to get involved with this. I'd be very curious to listen to what the meeting, be a little mouse in the corner, kind of the wrap up meetings. But I think there'll have to be some kind of changes on the coaching staff. But I think that the quicker Nebraska moves on, the better. Okay, Greg. Yes. I'm sorry. I saw your hand raised in the back. I missed it.
Who's number 14?
Well, interestingly enough, in my rankings, I have Jeff Brome as number 14.
John, is that interesting based on the conversation we had earlier?
Well, Purdue, it's almost basketball season.
Yeah.
Tyler, where do you think we're at a year from now?
I feel kind of that 4-1, 5-0 is definitely possible for this team next year, especially if you look at the way the schedule plays out. We're not playing a lot of the big blue blood teams. I mean, it's really an opportunity for us to flex our muscles and show a supreme growth in what will that be by this time? Scott's 5th year, 6th year, 5, right? Year 5.
Year 5.
Yeah.
And in my defense, I didn't look at the schedule. I was just hoping.
Yeah. But I think if Scott is being honest with himself, and when he goes home at night and has some time with his thoughts alone, he has to come to the realization that if he wants to keep his job, if he wants Nebraska to be successful, he has got to part ways with some coaches that he brought with him from UCF. And I think some of those people are even unfortunately, they're Nebraska alums. Not to point fingers at who I'm mentioning here, but there needs to be some change. You can't expect to win in this conference when your offensive line can't block, provide running lanes. You can't expect a team to succeed when those running backs don't always follow their blocking. There is some spotty wide receiver blocking on the outside that I think could be better, and we've had better wide receiver blocking in the past, as well as production at the wide receiver position. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say how many coaches are going to go. I do think Mario Verduzco has shown that he, in year 4, has finally maybe gotten Adrian where he needs to be. And I do believe Adrian will be back next year. I know you're not a big fan of that thought, John, but I don't think he's done enough. I don't think he definitely hasn't done enough to be drafted into the NFL. I don't think he's had one and a half good seasons. If he really wants to make a shot at the NFL, his best shot is here. I don't think going back to Fresno and leading Fresno to a 11-0 record in a weak Mountain West Conference does it for you. I know that's a big speculation too, that he wants to go back to Fresno, but I don't think that does it for you either.
I've thought about this. I'm going to give you guys a worst case scenario.
Okay.
We're now in the 4th year of Scott Frost. We're 3-5. If we lose to Purdue this week, he shouldn't be back at all. But let's just say that I don't think he's going to get fired. I don't think Scott Frost is going to get fired no matter what you, me, anybody thinks. Might he replace some of his coaching staff? Yeah. Here's the problem that I have, and why I'm glad I don't make these decisions unless they were paying me like, I don't know, $1.5 million a year. Let's say that Scott Frost does improve. We end up 5-7, and people are like, "Oh, we were so close to being a good team. We were so close to being a good team." Next year he goes 6-6, and the year after that he goes 7-5, and 7-5, and 7-5, and suddenly we've got Kirk Ferentz for a fucking coach, and that's all we have ever gonna get out of Scott Frost, because that's his ceiling. Is whatever he's gonna be like Kirk Ferentz. Except his name is going to be Scott Frost and be coaching at Nebraska. He'll get bonuses for winning 8 games, just like Kirk does, because the athletic department is a bunch of weak-willed, need poopy butts. But if you were going to fire a guy for being bad at his job, year 4 with a losing record would be where you would do it. I'll probably do a separate YouTube video on that, is because it's shorter. But that would be the one fear I would have about Scott Frost. Either he needs to, it's as if he said, I'm just going to show up and be a head coach and things will fall into place because I'm going to do the shit we did before and everything will be successful. And the team will likely figure out a lot of it because that, we'll coach him up a little and then they'll put a unity council together and those guys will figure out how to make themselves accountable and good. And I think when we talk about it being close enough, I don't think it's the players at all. I really don't. I think it's him and his staff. They're the ones that are close enough, but they're not good enough to get these games won. It's not the guys on the field that are doing this. I mean, they're playing the games, but they're not the ones that are not scoring that extra touchdown. There you go. That's my bit.
Do you let him go? So if we're going to go down this rabbit hole, we might as well fucking go in with both feet. His team, Scott's team, the Cornhuskers. You take away the season opener against Illinois, and you take away the loss against Minnesota. I'll even throw out the Fordham and Buffalo games. You got 4 games against, and 3 of those 4 opponents are, top 10, I think, right? Oklahoma, Michigan State. And you're right there. You by all accounts, you could have won this. I'm not going to sit here in hindsight it and say should have. I don't need the internet jumping on my ass again. And then you come out of the bye week. You've got Purdue, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa. And outside of Purdue, I believe – no, I tell you what, Wisconsin's not rated. So but you still have Ohio State and Iowa, both, I believe, in the top 10, correct?
I think Iowa's up there.
Yeah. I didn't say Iowa State, did I?
No, I did.
Okay. Iowa's 9, I think. I think they're 9th.
Okay. So you've played.
Iowa's 9.
Okay. You have I thought that was feedback, so I apologize for my odd reaction. You've played some tough competition. You've got more, what do we have to do? We have to get 2 of the next 4?
3
of the next 4.
I mean, not for bowl eligibility. I mean, to keep Scott in Lincoln, in John's scenario, you have to finish 500.
I think so. Yeah. Go 6-6, you son of a bitch.
I'm
been paid a lot.
I agree.
Greg, the problem is, and I understand where you're coming from.
I sound like a Scott Frost apologist. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to figure out.
It's okay.
But you can't take away Illinois. You can't take away those games. They happen. And that in itself is, in my opinion, one of the biggest failings of Scott Frost is a total lack of consistency. Mm-hmm. And, I listened today to some people talking about John Cook and the way that, he coaches his teams, and what John Cook and Will Bolt coach teams can do is that they are consistent with their emotions after the result. and, even keel, and never too high, never too low. A lot of old coach speak, cliche, but it's true. And, Scott Frost, his teams are epitomized by a lack of consistency. And whether that's snap to snap, discipline on the field, whatever it might be. This year we have seen, and I honestly believe we have seen glimmers of brilliance. We truly have glimmers of brilliance. But until you can sustain that, we have what we have. We have a total lack of consistency.
So I don't disagree. And we've talked earlier, the 1 step forward, 8 steps back. I know it used to be one step forward, 2, and then 5. And we're just adding, backward steps. But what do? You can't burn down the program again. You can't set fire.
Well,
to
you can. You're young, Greg.
Well, here
we've not all of us have seen as many winters as you.
Here's my thing to that on the consistency aspect of it. We could easily right now still have Bo Pelini as our head coach winning 8 to 9 games a season. But the drawback to any Bo Pelini coach team was what happened when we played primetime games. Anytime we had the spotlight on us, we shit the bed. We looked horribly incompetent against, and the biggest microscope that you can put under the Bo Pelini era is the Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin. They made us look like a junior varsity football team. But yeah, we would go to bowl games with 8 to 9 wins consistently, but we would never be that team that contends. We would never be that team that would even get that shot. But now we're looking at it with the flip side of the coin. Yeah.
I was going to say, Bo Pelini was our Kirk Ferentz. John.
Well, that's kind of a weird comparison just because of their personalities, but okay.
Right. And then you saw all that pushback. You saw all that pushback and that resentment that Bo was fired with the players that were left within the program when Bo was fired. And I think that played into, unfortunately, Mr. Rogers, Mike Riley, getting a really short leash and not getting opportunity. He had a lot of resistance from that team, and from all accounts, it seems like that team pretty much was run kind of like a youth, like a youth 60s, like, I don't know, what do you like a hippie thing, everybody love everybody,
a commune,
type of thing.
Commune.
I don't even know. Like, I'm talking to the older crowd here. So, like, what was that called back in the day? Like a commune, right? like a hippie commune. Sorry, Greg. I didn't mean to throw you in there with Todd and John, but
I actually knew what a commune was, so you're good. I'm also a hippie. I just get haircuts unlike John.
I'm done. I'm done getting haircuts.
Not a hippie.
And so that's another culture that gets brought in and tried to be instilled. And then we bring in Scott Frost, and then there's, mixtures of Bo players and Mike Riley recruits, in that mix, dealing with that culture change. And it seems like from all accounts now, Scott is putting on his big boy voice and being more angry at practice and demanding more accountability from players now. I don't know why that wasn't a thing right at the beginning, but that's not for me to say. But I guess then I don't know where we go from here if we don't try and ride this ship out and see if Scott can actually give us what he promised, 4 years ago when he said that the Big Ten's going to have to change for us. Maybe he ate his words a little bit, ate some crow, and he realizes that, maybe we need to go back to what made us great. And I think we talked about this a little bit just as a group off the podcast, just in our group chat. But I think the option is our best working play so far. Like the option game that we run now is the best our offense looks. So when we talk about bread and butter plays and stuff we do well, surprisingly, we do that pretty well. We do. And Adrian seems to have picked up on it well, and he seems to have pretty decent timing on his pitch man, and the running backs seem to have good depth. The blocking seems to be good on the perimeter. Maybe it's I'm not saying it's time to go back to the option completely and be a Navy or an Air Force, but there is offenses out there that I think, doesn't Tulane run something like that, run like a shotgun option offense or something like that? But I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
So
you guys talking too much. But
another reason you can't just cut him is the economic standpoint. What's the buyout?
Like $22 million.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, how many years were we paying Bo Pelini when he was no longer the coach? I'm not saying like it. I'm not saying it's like a stay together for the kids type of situation, but you can't be owing $22 million to one guy, and then the guy you're going to have to bring in, you're going to be paying him $8 a year. You're going to have to pay. You're going to have to go get like Nick Saban light.
You can do this. You can.
Who?
It's not a matter of who. I want to point something out. Our entire lives, and not your entire life, Greg or Tyler, our entire lives, Todd and I, Nebraska in its entire history has never won a single NCAA tournament game of basketball, ever. Right. We are the worst power program in history of all the conferences. We're the worst.
Let's not call that.
We didn't just sit here and go, oh, gosh, I guess Tim Miles was unsuccessful. We just might as well fall down and cry and just get beat up by the Big Ten and feel bad about ourselves. No, we found a coach named Fred Hoiberg who's now bringing in players of the likes we've never seen even walk on the floor at Nebraska, whether they were drugged and woke up there with a bag over their head or not. And now we're looking at a basketball team that can probably compete in the Big Ten, the best conference in the land.
Okay.
So the reasons why you get rid of Scott Frost is that you look at him at the end of the year and you say, he's not going to get this done. And then you come up with the money. And I know Trev Alberts the other night said they didn't want to break the big construction thing into two pieces, and they needed $22 million, which is just pretty much what Scott's buyout is. So that's where you get your idea that, they don't want to pay that right now because they'd rather build themselves this fabulous palace thing. So we're going to be stuck with possibly a coach that really isn't that good.
See,
but you don't just say, no, I can't do this.
My comment early on was that I see Scott Frost coming back next year unless these 4 games are total disasters. Okay.
Right.
And I don't think these 4 games are going to be total disasters. I still have the belief that Nebraska can put it together. I think they can win some of these games. I don't know, but they may very well go 0-4. But I guess my point is, and that what I'm trying to say is, I don't think Scott Frost is going to take Nebraska to the level that Nebraska fans desire. And the sooner that the powers that be figure it out, in my opinion, the better. Greg, no question about the buyout. No question. That handcuffs to an extent, and John's right. We can break the bank and bring in, whomever, if that's the direction. But I think that there are too many other things in play. get that new facility built. Because supposedly it's going to be the palace in college sports. At that point in time, you got potential coaches looking at that thing, and that will become a selling point. Now, Scott Frost next year, Tyler mentioned, he thought, 4-1, he maybe even 5-0 is a reality. I haven't looked at the schedule for next year. Hell, I'm waiting for the baseball schedule to come out, and I haven't seen that yet. But the reality of it is that, he could go in next year and maybe he does win 8 games, 9 games, and maybe people get all excited about it. But in the back of my mind, I'm kind of where John's at. I think Scott Frost is going to reach his ceiling, and I don't think it's going to be where Nebraska fans expect the team to be.
I got one more thing to add to this. Adrian Martinez has been our starting quarterback, 16 years now? Something like that? And we have a head coach.
We've had a lot of 4-year starters.
We have a head coach who has more talent than the rest of his entire division, but he can't win games against these division foes. He can't. And even though he has better players, he does. And you look at it and you kind of go, okay, what are you waiting for? You're playing Martinez. You never play anybody else. What are you going to do when Martinez is gone? You're going to sit there and make excuses that the next guy doesn't know the offense or he can't run the offense and wait until we get the next guy after that and the next guy after that? In other words, are we going to have a season where we go, oh my God, he's got all this shit together and we have 9 wins? And then that guy leaves and the next 2 years are 3-9 because, I don't have the right quarterback. They can't do things. That's what bothers. That's the other thing, along with inconsistency, that bothers me about him. He has to throw his offense out and start over. And that probably includes his offensive stuff.
It is interesting because we saw a little bit last year of what happens when we decide to throw somebody besides Adrian Martinez out there. And look where Mr. McCaffrey is now, 3rd, 4th on the depth chart at Rice. Maybe, somewhere in there. I have liked what I've seen out of Logan, but it's going to be interesting to see if he maintains that with, it seems like the way that Heinrich has been developing. I think it's been hard for them to, I think it's been closer than most people think between Logan and Heinrich, to see how that plays out. Going back to kind of what we were talking about, if Scott's reached his ceiling, so say, eventually we do get rid of him and go somewhere else and find somebody else, and he goes to a non-Power 5 school or wherever we are in realignment at that point, when this realignment crap is over. Does he find success there?
Yeah, he might.
Is it he's playing big boy ball and doesn't know how to play big boy ball as a head coach, and he can maybe have a career like Luke Fickell, who got handed the keys of the Ohio State team and got run out for somebody like Urban Meyer, and now has found success at Cincinnati and has them number 2 in the country. Is that where we're going to be?
I think there's something to be said about never going home to coach your alma mater, because when you do that, you have to deal with all the baggage that's waiting for you when you get there and all the baggage you bring with you. And then you have to deal with all the fucking traditions that, quite frankly, don't add anything but more noise and shit piled on top of you trying to be successful. When are they going to hand out the black shirt? When do we have a fullback? Can he run the option of the first play of the game as a throwback to the old days? Hey, Scott, I want to go out to dinner. I played center for you. I was the 4th string center in 96. That kind of shit. You don't have to deal with that if you move someplace completely far away from your home and just start a life there and go, I'm going to be a football coach. There you go.
I tell you, I like Adrian Martinez. I like him. He's given, Nebraska, I think, everything he has. They've carried him off on his shield, so to speak. But I would suggest that if Nebraska loses to Purdue and if Nebraska loses to Ohio State, I think against Wisconsin and Iowa, you play Logan Smothers. And I think that you put him in the position of a starter. You put him under the heat of Big Ten rivalries. And I think that you use those as a way to get a jump on the 2022 season.
Well, this has been a fun celebration of 250 episodes of the 5 Heart Podcast. I don't know what was more depressing, talking about the future of Husker football or Brian. So
we've been through a lot, Greg.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Purdue this weekend. The Boilermakers. Nebraska's coming off of a bye. Purdue is coming off of a loss to Wisconsin right after they beat Iowa when Iowa was the number 2 team in the country. So exposed the Hawkeyes a little bit there. Nebraska, look, Scott I think he was doing the opposite of making excuses, but at one point he said, hey, you play 8 games in a row in the NFL. You got to be able to play 8 games in a row in college. So that's what they did. They played 8 games in a row, week 0 to week 7. And they took, on the 8th week, they rested and they found it wasn't good. So what happens in this game against Purdue? John and I have a little bit of inside insight because just before we recorded this podcast, we recorded the very next episode of the 5 Heart Podcast, which drops tomorrow, featuring Travis Miller from Hammer and Rails, the Purdue SB Nation site. And so we know what Travis said. What Travis said is the defense is there. They ain't got no running game in West Lafayette. So he made a prediction. I'll let the viewers and listeners check out tomorrow's episode for that. But this is not the same Purdue team from, as recently as last year. There's no Rondale Moore. They still have the one receiving threat in Bell. They have a nasty defenseman who is went to school right there in West Lafayette. And John, you know his name. I don't.
George Karfalitos. George. His name's George.
Okay, George. But this is a Purdue team that is, I don't know, underachieving. I think to
George.
Right. Yeah. This Purdue team is about where Travis Miller kind of had them. And Jeff Brom is for the offensive genius that we all thought he was, is probably going to have to make some offseason adjustments as well. So we'll start with you, Tyler. We'll get to score predictions here in a few minutes, but from what you've seen of the Huskers, what you've seen of Purdue this year, where do you see this one going on Saturday?
Well, I think the one thing that I noticed a lot in the past years that we played Purdue.
Somebody check that dryer.
The years prior that we played Purdue, DiCaprio Boodle usually was always on their number 1. And I think last year DCAP did an amazing job shutting down David Bell. So it wasn't CTB who was covering their primary receiver. So it'll be interesting to see who they decide to match up David Bell with, as well as the tight end, Dunham or Durham or whatever. He's usually had pretty good games against us in the past. It's going to be any running game. I think King Doru has been their primary guy. Less stout lines than ours, but I think our line will be able to handle the running game. So it's really going to come down to how our secondary plays against their receivers. If our secondary matches up with their receivers, which I think they do, and then it's what exactly did Nebraska's offense do well in the bye week for the plays that Frost said need to be our kind of bread and butter stuff. We need to get back to doing what we do well. Well, what is it? What happens to be what we do well? And I think that's it. Yeah, so yes, great.
I don't know about what we do well. It's something we don't do at all. But by God, when it's 4th and inches at the goal line, I sure would like to see the quarterback line up under center.
You're so old.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're the silver fox. I've got the speckle of gray that I keep hidden with the hat. It's not hidden. It keeps the glare.
Well, maybe he'll come out and do kind of what Mike Riley did to us when he started featuring Andy Janovich, and that got him an NFL career. Actually come out in a power I formation and find somebody who can play fullback. Maybe one of your tight ends or something like that, kick him to that and run a traditional I formation set, give the fans, that those old school fans, what they've been dying to see, give them that.
I've said it before. I'll say it again.
I don't know that
Brody Belt needs more time on the field.
He does do some things right. I think I do. I think it's weird to think that somebody who started off as a running back and now as a slot receiver, and then he got the start last week. Obviously, he's a walk-on, so it's weird to see these walk-ons outperforming these scholarship guys. But if he's got the talent, well, then let's utilize him. I mean, let's find ways to get these guys the football quickly, because it seems like our line can't give Adrian a lot of time. They do or they don't. It's really inconsistent. I want to see a consistent offensive line play. How about that? That should have been what I led with. I want consistent offensive line play. But
coming in 2022, Todd, you are always an oasis of optimism. Why don't you share some of that with us right now?
Simple game plan. Really simple. Double Bell, double Karloftis, win the ball game. It's that easy. You gotta take Bell out of the game. Yeah. You gotta neutralize Karloftis. Nebraska's got advantages across the board. They win the ball game. Simple. Realize, since Scott Frost has been at Nebraska, Nebraska has never won after the bye week. Realize that since Scott Frost has been at Nebraska, they have struggled mightily as home team betting favorites.
Oh, God, that gave me all the hope in the world.
I started off, but then I'm a realist.
I hope that after this bye week thing, they have this chance for these next 4 games to show that, yes, they are better. And I hope there's just a team that goes out with plays with tons of energy and anger. Like like not what they did against Minnesota. So they do have a chance to show this stuff. And you're right. They just, maybe Bryce Benhart can just have a bunch of bananas in his pants. And as George is coming through the line, he just accidentally whips one out and throws it in front of him. George of the jungle, kind of, watch out for that tree.
I don't want any player on either team whipping the banana out of his pants and putting it in the direction of anybody, sir.
I don't think it's specifically against any rule.
It depends on what banana we're talking about, I guess. All right.
Am I supposed to say what I think will happen?
No, hope maybe. It's not. We'll get to the predictions, the actual scores here in a minute. I mean, this thing's only been going on an hour and a half, John. How
I know. Todd is old.
I'm doing everything I can to stay awake.
We need to finish so Todd can go to bed.
Yeah. John, do you realistic? I mean, honestly, do you have anything that you hope to see from the double coverages to the just out athleticing them, out better athletes, better results type of thing?
I'll tell you what, I'll be watching this game really for not just one thing, but I will be watching one thing very close is when we get to the red zone, is Austin Allen in the fucking game? Is Omar Manning in the game? Can they throw the ball to really tall guys in the end zone that can catch the ball in the end zone and score points? Can we figure out a red zone offense that shouldn't be that difficult? That's what I'm going to watch this game for. Because if they can't do those things, I'm going to go, what the hell are we going to do? Just be bad at offense forever? What the hell? So there you go. That's what I'm going to look for.
I think this is going to be a situation where, if the hallmark of this Purdue football team is their defense, certainly that's been the most consistent element of Nebraska's, game in 2021. It's definitely not been special teams. We didn't even touch on that, and we don't have time. Todd's drifting. And I've been in Todd's position. But
my wife just came downstairs and she's like, "Are you coming to bed soon?" I'm like, "I think so."
If it makes you feel any better, Tyler, my wife's been downstairs and back up and didn't even bother to ask. So, but it's gonna come down to the offense actually playing at a level that will earn them a victory. Keep this in mind, and I'm just going to give you the number, and I'll let Travis explain why when the next episode drops tomorrow. The number 13. If Nebraska can score 14 points, I like our chances. The problem is, again, that consistency. Both for and it's everywhere. It's the offensive line. It's the quarterback play. It has been better this season, but it's still been inconsistent. And then it's the personnel on the field in key moments. Where is your 6'9" tight end? Where is your 4-star JUCO transfer? Where is your grad transfer from Montana who had one reception or 1 yard last week or last game, was barely utilized? And where's the dual threat of your dual threat quarterback? Because we didn't see that against Minnesota. If you have some of these elements in play, you're going to be successful. Martinez, I don't know. I've turned it off. I didn't even think about college football last weekend. And so I don't know if he was hurt, if he was a little gimpy, or what happened in that Minnesota game that we did not see a mobile, able to make, extend a play, make something happen with his feet, Adrian Martinez. Oh, sorry. But you need that element, or it's a house of cards. It's a castle built on sand. So you got to the coaches have to put this team in a position to succeed. I agree with the sentiment that was said earlier, is that they've had all the opportunities. They're giving it their all. I am not doubting 1 ounce of heart, desire, effort on that field. It's just they're not always put in the right position. And so before we get to the scores, I want to we've talked about it. I told myself I wasn't going to look that far ahead. I'm doing it anyway. On August 27th in Dublin, Ireland, it's Northwestern. September 3rd, home against North Dakota. September 10th, home against Georgia Southern. September 17th, home against Oklahoma. September 24th, at Rutgers. October 1st, home against Indiana. You have 1 neutral site and 1 road game in your first 6 games of 2022. Let's kick some fucking ass. Let's finish strong. Bowl game or not, don't even think about December. Worry about October, because October is what we've got right in front of us. It's Purdue. It's time to fucking show up, and put the naysayers on their ass. Get the job done on the field. Don't worry about 2022. Don't worry about a potential bowl game. If you don't take care of Purdue, ain't no bowl game. If you don't take care of Ohio State, ain't no bowl game. They'll take care of Wisconsin, Iowa. Forget about it. We're down to sudden death. We just can only worry about the next thing, and that's Purdue. So with that, let's get to our predictions, our scores. Tyler, let's start with you as the rookie.
I think that the Huskers will pull this one out by a score of 27-21. So Connor Cope will get some redemption, some field goals in PATs and field goals. I think he rides the ship. I think we actually do see a heavy dose of the run game and Samori Torrey and Austin Allen and Travis Vokalek. Other guys I'm not so sure about, but defense will do enough to keep them from being too high-powered of our defense. So, 27-21. That's what I got.
Todd?
I put a lot of thought into my prediction this week.
Oh. I'm going to start calling you.
I really have. I am going to bank on the fact that they did get some things accomplished over the bye week. It's my understanding they had quite a few days off because they played a 0-week game. So I think they have refreshed bodies. I think they have refreshed minds. So I'm going to say 35-21 Nebraska.
Ooh.
In other words, the same fucking prediction you've made every week this year. I appreciate your putting all that effort and time into that, I'm going to go with 24-13. And the reason why I'm going to go to 24-13 is because 13 seems to be a magic number for Purdue. And because if we lose this game, it's a disaster. It really is. This isn't Minnesota. Minnesota actually has a complete football team. Purdue is nowhere near a complete football team. They have some good players in specific spots, but we should actually beat the shit out of them, but I don't have enough faith in saying that we will. But I'll go with 24-13. Nebraska win. By 2 scores.
Leaves it to me. Thought long and hard about this based on information from all sides and parties. I feel like the offense is going to do some things. I feel like they're going to be able to move the football. And whether they score from in the red zone or not, I feel like they're going to put some points on the board. I also feel like the defense is going to do their part. And I don't know if I want to give the farm away and say, have a pick 6 or a defensive touchdown, but I do feel like there's going to be at least one turnover from, Purdue side, one takeaway for Nebraska. However, Connor Culp scares me. And I don't think he's going to convert every opportunity. That's why my bold prediction, Nebraska 40, Purdue 13.
Okay.
And we'll see. We'll see. And again, Travis Miller, our esteemed colleague from Hammer and Rails, did a prediction as well. So check it out in tomorrow's episode of the 5 Heart Podcast. That's right. You get 2 episodes of the 5 Heart Podcast this week. And as I mentioned previously, I apologize. So that'll be it for this episode. We got to John.
What?
Can we do something we've never done before?
Oh, God. Why not?
Can we sing Todd to sleep?
I
can see he's over there. We gotta let the old fella.
I doubt anybody but your friend of the program guy has gotten this far. So whatever you want to do now, let's just do it. Because it is the 250th episode and the longest episode we've ever done, I think, by a ways.
We're over an hour and 45 minutes. Just a heads up.
How about we just wrap it up? How about that? How about we'll
let our second elder statesman make that call. So for Tyler, the newest to the show, I'm pointing down because that's on my
face because I don't know where I'm at.
Anyway, okay, John, I'll say their names. You point to them. Okay. All right. For Tyler, for Todd Wolverton, for our founder and fearless leader, John Johnston. I got this one, John. I'm Greg Mahochko. We thank you for 250 episodes of the 5 Heart Podcast and at least one more because that one's already recorded. And after that, it's a crapshoot and shit show. So we remind you this week and every week, as we have for 250 weeks, 5 Heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.